Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Aussie Footy Show 13th episode. I'm glad you're here once again with part one of Out of Two Parts as we did last week's episode. So, Aidan Berry will be taking you all his round 9 reviews and thoughts and all the results coming into as well, and to previews and predictions of round 10. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Aidan, take it away. Thank you so much for another awesome round of footy.
Hello again, Ben. Hello again, everybody. And thank you again, Ben, for having me on the show to discuss round 9 and preview round 10 of the AFL. First game of round 9 was on Thursday night, and it was between the Fremantle Football Club and the Collingwood Magpies. And this game was a real interesting one. Collingwood come in, dropping some of their senior players, giving them a management break due to their compressed schedule over the last couple of weeks. And they take on Fremantle in Perth as well, so a long trip there, saving the legs for the old boys, getting them ready for the big push in September that Collingwood will definitely have come the end of the year. Fremantle, a team who won pretty much every single statistical category, apart from turnovers and intercepts, with more turnovers, less intercepts going the way of Collingwood, because those two statistics obviously are intertwined. But, when the other team drops four or five key players for the week, you're at home and you win every category, you don't win the scoreboard. So the final score here was Fremantle 12-11-83, Collingwood 15-7-97 as the Pies go to Perth, undermanned, win the game on the scoreboard where it is won and not in the books of the statistic. Player of the game obviously has to go to Jamie Elliott. 6 goals, 108 AFL fantasy, 14 touches, 13 kicks, 1 handball, 8 marks and 1 tackle for Jamie Elliott, the real match winner there for Collingwood. We'll now move straight into the Friday night game between St Kilda and Carlton. And this one, I think, looked very even on paper, probably not favouring Carlton by that little bit. But Carlton, again, do get the win here against St Kilda. So this one, Carlton win the game. 11-11-77, 9-8-62 over St Kilda. St Kilda, team who are very up and down this year. They've had some up weeks. They had a very big up week against Freo a couple of weeks ago. Now they have a little bit of a down week against the Blues. This is telling of St Kilda and how it's been for the last couple of years. For the Saints, a team who can't ever seem to get their foot up off the canvas when they need to, because they are a team who I think could be doing a lot more with the list that they've got, but they just can't seem to be able to string any wins together of any significance. So Carlton, even though they had a lot of players out, lost a lot of bodies during the game as well. Hold on, play a really solid game defensively in that last quarter to hold on against St Kilda, winning by, as I said, 15 points there for the Blues. Player of the game here on that back of that real solid defensive effort will be going to, even though it was a real defensive effort, I'm going to go with the forward. I'm going to go with Harry Mackay. 112 AFL fantasy, 3 goal, 19 touches, 13 kicks, 6 handballs, 10 marks, 3 tackles, and 4 hit-outs for the Carlton key forward. Now we get straight into Saturday footy action, and we start with Melbourne versus Hawthorn, a game that was very hotly contested through most of the game. Very close. If we look at the worm, as we can see, it was quite close all the way up until 3/4 time. So 3/4 time was Melbourne 6-13, Hawthorn 7-8. So very close game throughout the first 3 quarters. Then in the final quarter, Hawthorn blow Melbourne away, showing why Hawthorn are a real contender, possibly a real preliminary finals contender this year. I wouldn't call them a grand final contender just yet, but I think preliminary finals are definitely in the sign on the cards for Hawthorn. Melbourne, very good effort. They hung on against a team of much better quality, much better class, and if they could have hung on in that last quarter, we never know what could happen. They could have got a big win there, but they just can't go in that last quarter, and Hawthorn run over them there. Hawthorn, as I said, team who are very strong at the moment, coming off this win now, they look to really build into that middle phase of the season that we're now in as they look to push for a real good chance at the finals. Prelim finals definitely should be on the cards for them this year. They've got, definitely got a lot of young talent there. The Mosquito Fleet does a very good effort down on the ground and picking up crumbs to score goals, and that's where a lot of their scoring did come from in this game. Jack Gunston 3 goals, Nick Watson 2 goals. So a lot of the small guys getting involved as well. So that's if that's how Hawthorn are going to win footy, that's how they're going to win footy. So we'll go to my player of the game now, which is James Warple from Hawthorn. 113 AFL Fantasy, 28 touches, 8 kicks, 20 handballs, 2 marks, and 10 tackles for James Warple. Now we move into the second of 4 games on Saturday footy. So now we have Essendon and Sydney from Marvel. The Bombers and the Swans, this was a very, very hotly contested game in parts and a very, very one-sided game in other parts. I think Essendon had that big jump in that second quarter. They won the ball. Now, I'm saying this now. This game, even though it says, second quarter, Essendon 6 goals, Sydney 1 goal in the second quarter. This game, a lot more closer than that. So Sydney were definitely right in the fight all the way through. Definitely closed in that final quarter. Final quarter, Sydney only allowed Essendon to get 1 point, but they also only kicked 3 goals, 5 in that final quarter. So they couldn't quite get the comeback on because of bad accuracy. Final score in this one is Essendon 11-5, 71. Sydney 8-15, 63. So Bombers very, very good on the scoreboard. 16 scorers registered for 11 goals, 5 behinds. Sydney, can't say the same about them. They've got a 1-to-2 ratio here of 1 goal to every 2 behinds pretty much. So 8-15 for the Swans is not good enough at any level, especially in the AFL. Bombers, though, powered by a very, very strong second quarter. And it was that second quarter by the Bombers. They kicked 6 straight in that second quarter. And if you add in the third as well, from quarter time to 3/4 time, the Bombers added 8 goals, 3. So a very, very strong middle of the game there for the Bombers. But Sydney definitely stayed in the fight as much as they could and was able to mount a small comeback in the final quarter, but just not enough to get over the line against the Bombers. Again, Sydney, this is something quite disturbing, quite concerning for looking at the Swans. A very strong team, but just a team who aren't getting over the line much this year. I think if we go that ladder quickly, the Sydney Swans still only have 3 wins on the year. So a team with so much hope, so much potential, only able to get 3 wins on the year is not good enough. Their season is pretty much all but over at this point unless they can mount a real mid-season charge. Bombers, though, very good win, very big win for them. Getting a big win over a top side like Sydney is always helpful in a playoff, in a finals push. I was thinking about the playoffs for a second there, but it is playoff time in America. So in a finals push, big wins over these top sides or perceivably top sides is very helpful. Player of the game in Essendon versus Sydney will go obviously to Nick Martin of the Bombers. 141 AFL Fantasy, 38 touches, 22 kicks, 16 handballs, 8 marks, and 5 tackles for Nick Martin. Now we go to Saturday night footy, and we will start in the Northern Territory up in Darwin between the Gold Coast Suns and the Western Bulldogs. And this game was a Gold Coast game to win. They are always a very, very strong team up in the Territory, and they showed it again against the Doggies. Final scoreline not really reflecting with the true position of that game, with the Doggies only losing by 10. So Gold Coast, they do get the win here. As I said, they win at 15-16, 106-14, 12-96. So Doggies, if they had a little bit more score, they would have got over the line here. It's just unfortunate not to. But Gold Coast, as I always say, in Darwin, can't ever tip against the Gold Coast. Darwin Alice Springs, that's pretty much their second home. So a very, very good showing for Gold Coast. Another big win for them to push their finals contention. I believe that Gold Coast now, if we have a look at the end of round 9 ladder, they are 8th and also have a game in hand on the bye that they had from playing an opening round. So Gold Coast, another strong win, very good win for them. A lot of players continuing to perform well for Gold Coast. Doggies go up to Darwin, put on a really, really good effort. I think even though I think they were favoured not to win this game, favoured to lose this game, a very strong performance. Only losing to Gold Coast by 10 in Darwin is always something to be proud of up there. So we'll go to my player of the game. And there's a lot of Doggies players topping the fantasy rankings, and we're going to go with Liberatore. We're going to go with Tom Liberatore from the Western Bulldogs. 140 AFL Fantasy, 35 touches, 15 kicks, 20 handballs, 6 marks, 10 tackles to make him have a triple-double for the night. Now we come to the biggest game on the South Australian footballing calendar. The showdown between the Power and the Crows. And as always, it's always a very, very hotly contested game, a very, very close game this time. We will go straight into it. We're going to go quarter by quarter and tell the story of this game as it progresses. First quarter, very, very close. Port Adelaide 3-1 to Adelaide 3-4 in the first quarter. Second quarter, 4 goals to both sides. Port Adelaide going to 4 goals, 2 in the quarter. Adelaide going 4 goals, 4 in the quarter, slowly edging their advantage out over the Power. As we come into the main break, Adelaide leading by 5 points. Then we come into the second half, the third quarter. 3 goals each way again. Port Adelaide going 3-3. Adelaide going 3 straight to hold that small advantage over them as we head to the final change. Final quarter in this one. Very, very close. Crows get on a run early in the quarter and they pretty much steal the victory from that run. Port Adelaide do close late. They come in real close late to make it a real nail-biter. Final quarter scores like Port Adelaide 2-6. Adelaide 3-3. So we can see where Port Adelaide do lose this game in the final quarter. It is those 6 behinds in the final quarter costing Port Adelaide the game. And they probably really should have won, all things considered. But a great effort. Both teams having 24 scoring shots with just one switch, the difference between them. So 12-12, 13-11. Where the final tallies 12-12, 84, 13-11, 89 for the Crows as they win the showdown by 5 points. The player of the game. We're going to do something a little bit different because it is the showdown. I'm going to give you a 1, 2, 3. My first player, so my first rated player. 1 vote goes to Miles Bergman from Port Adelaide. 112 AFL fantasy, 23 touches, 15 kicks, 8 handballs, 5 marks, 8 tackles. 1 vote for Miles Bergman of the Power. Now 2 votes go to also the Port Adelaide Football Club. Connor Rose, 122 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 32 touches, 24 kicks, 8 handballs, 4 marks and 5 tackles. And then finally, player who I will be awarding 3 votes for the showdown, it's going to be James Peatling of the Adelaide Football Club. Only had 24 touches, but 24 very good touches throughout the game and a lot of defensive pressure when he needed to stand up. He did, so it was 117 AFL fantasy for James Peatling. 24 touches, 15 kicks, 9 handballs, 3 marks, and more importantly, 12 tackles to keep the pressure on the Power and keep the game going in the direction of the Crows at the end of the night. Now we jump into Sunday and we have some real nail biters. We start with Richmond versus West Coast from the MCG, 2 teams who are down the bottom of the ladder again this year. 2 teams who are looking to just build a little bit of confidence, a little bit of momentum as we go through the mid-year. Richmond have taken some big wins though already. For a team who haven't expected to do a lot, I think saying that they have 3 wins is quite a lot for them. So that 3 wins for Richmond puts them in a mix with Sydney and Melbourne, which is a big step. Richmond, it's a big step for North Melbourne and West Coast to catch, though, I'll tell you that. But Richmond, again, they get that 3rd win of the year over West Coast, winning this one 11-15-81, West Coast 11-13-79. So Richmond just pulling out where it needed to come up. Big effort. The young Tigers get the win over West Coast, who are really struggling. They're 0-9 now, and this is not looking pretty at all for West Coast. And I am seeing alarm bells all over the field, and I am seeing a lot of concerning things. Harley Reid, I think, growth might be something. He's a very good player, Harley Reid, but he's just not getting the help he needs to get the wins on the board, and that's hard. That's very hard for a young player to take when they are considered one of the great future stars of the game. Richmond, they're selling out to buy the draft. Last year has helped them immensely in this rebuild. 3 wins, 2 round 9, and they are looking quite strong. They could get 4 to 5 wins come the end of the year if they continue this form. Player of the game for this one will be from Richmond, Tim Taranto. Only 94 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 27 touches, 9 kick, 18 handballs, 3 marks and 4 tackles as Richmond go on to win that one by 2 points. The second game on Sunday was down at Cardinia Park between the Geelong Cats and the GWS Giants. The final score in this one, Geelong 14-17, 101. GWS 16-9, 105. Again, scoreboard. We talk about it every week on this show. Ben drills on about it every week. So I'm going to talk about it a bit now. But when you're scoring 14-17, there is a lot of wasted opportunities and missed chances. You have a lot of opportunities, especially look at GWS 16-9. So 14 plus 17 is 31 registered scores. 16 plus 9 is 25 registered scores. So you have 6 more registered scores and you still lose the game, and that's not good enough for Geelong, a team who I think pride themselves on effectiveness inside forward 15, effectiveness in front of goal. It's just not what they believe, they're not their club culture, not their club ethos, and that comes to bite them in the back when the scores don't go your way. GWS getting over the line by 4 points in the end in what was another nail biter on this great Sunday of football that we had just gone. GWS get the win here here. They get the win. They show that they are still in the mix. I believe they're still in the mix. I didn't rate them earlier in the year. I thought they lost too many players, but they're showing they are definitely still in the mix. And I'm starting to believe that the Orange Tsunami is still fully intact, which is great to see for fans of Western Sydney. We'll go to my player of the game for this one, and it will be Bailey Smith of the Cat. 149 AFL fans, 35 touches, 20 kicks, 15 handballs, 8 marks, 10 tackles. So another triple-double effort here on the BJ Footy Show for the Geelong Cats player. 2 triple-doubles this week is an outstanding effort from Liberatore and from Smith. We'll now go to the final game of the round, and it was played in Hobart between North Melbourne and the Brisbane Lions. And footy does not get any better than this. Brisbane, the reigning defendings of the AFL, versus a minnow of at this moment in the North Melbourne Kangaroos. And this game was one to be stored in the record book by the end of the game. North Melbourne do what all the small teams do. I talk about this with all the small teams. The way to challenge the big team. Hang around. Stay in the contest. Do whatever needs to be done to stay in the game, and the results will fall for you. So North Melbourne, even though Brisbane were starting to get on top between the end of the second and beginning of the third quarter, North Melbourne, because they were able to hang around, put pressure on the Lions, stayed in the game. And Brisbane, again, pressure got to them down in Hobart. It's a North Melbourne home ground. Special place for North Melbourne. Unfortunately, they'll be leaving soon for Tasmania. But again, very special place for North Melbourne. When they go down there, you never know what can happen. We are going to get to the final result in this game now. And it was one, as I said, it was a real nail-biter. And North Melbourne do the things that need to be done for the small teams when they play against the big teams, and Brisbane not able to shake them. We have an identical draw. North Melbourne 10-11-71 to Brisbane 10-11-71 in what would be one of the matches of Hobart before Tasmania comes in. This was an absolute classic and a great way to end round 9 for the AFL. My player of the game in this one. There are so many great choices to go from. I could pick players from both teams. I'm going to pick, because it's a draw, I'm going to pick a player from both teams. So my player of the game from the Brisbane Lions is going to be Dane Zorko. 137 AFL fantasy, 39 touches, 29 kicks, 10 handballs, 8 marks, and 2 tackles. My player of the game from North Melbourne is going to be Tristan Cherry. 116 AFL fantasy, 19 touches, 10 kicks, 9 handballs, 2 marks, 8 tackles, and 36 hitouts. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have for round 9. And now it's time for my predictions and previews for round 10. We start with a game that is going to be an absolute classic. It's another one up in the Northern Territory in Darwin. It is Gold Coast and Hawthorn on the Thursday night. And this one, I just feel like, again, like I said the week before going into Gold Coast versus Doggies, is that any time Gold Coast play in the Northern Territory, they are a hard team to stop and a hard team to keep grounded. And that's why I think Gold Coast being up in the Northern Territory gives them massive help. I take Gold Coast over Hawthorn in this one. Friday night, we have the Sydney Swans and the Carlton Blues from the SCG. 2 teams who I think are still looking to see who they are and where they're going to end up this year. Even though it's at the SCG and Sydney are looking like they're going to be able to pull out the line here, I am going to take Carlton. I think Carlton are a much more settled side by this point of the year. They've had their downs already, Carlton, and now we're starting to see Carlton come back on the upper limit of form going the way of the Blues. Sydney, still a little lost, only those 3 wins on the year, and form very, very shaky in the book and on the field. Now, on the Saturday, we start at the MCG between the Collingwood Football Club and the Adelaide Football Club. And this one, I think, is going to be a very, very tough game for both sides to pull out. But I think down in Melbourne, Collingwood, the players who they rested against Fremantle, come back in after a week off at home. They're going to be very tough to beat. Nick Dacos is looking to bounce back. Josh Dacos is looking to bounce back. I think Collingwood take this one quite well. I think Adelaide will stay in the game for probably three and a half quarters, but then I think at the end of that, sort of midway through that final term, Collingwood do start to just pull away a little bit in the end there. Next, we have GWS and Fremantle from Western Sydney, and now it's time for Fremantle to take a long trip east. And because they are taking that trip east, and they have been very, very shaky and very, very poor in form as they played Collingwood last week, winning every major statistic and still losing the game on the scoreboard. That is unacceptable at AFL level. Even though maybe they can pull it out, I'm going to have to take the punishment on them and say GWS get this one over the line. I think they get this one over the line by about 4 goals as well, so it will be a strong win for GWS, unfortunately for the Purple Haze. Then we have 5 games on the docket for So we have 4 games on the docket for this Saturday. It's confusing because we've got two night games. We have 2 games at 3:45. The second 3:45 game is Port Adelaide versus Geelong. Ben, I know you're thinking the same thing. Geelong just too damn sexy for Port Adelaide in this one. So win to the Cats. I think it's going to be quite comfortable. It could get quite hard to watch for Power supporters when the Cats come to town and take you on and take you out quite easily. Then we have the lone game on Saturday night. Western Bulldogs and Essendon. And I think this game is one where I think the Doggies show their true colours, their true potential that has been brewing and building for the last couple of weeks. They showed it in Ballarat against Port. They showed it against Gold Coast in a losing effort that they are a team to be reckoned with this year. I think this week is no different. They play the Bombers. The Bombers again, a team who can take a few scalps here and there, but I think the Doggies, their form's just so good at the moment. It's hard to look past them. So Doggies win this one. I think they win this one quite comfortably. This could be a blowout of the week. Doggies, I'm going to say, win this one by maybe 10 goals. Now we come to Sunday. Stars on Sunday this week. We have Richmond and North Melbourne. I think Richmond get another win here against another bottom side. They are a very good team. They're a very good team when they are on form, and they've come off that win against West Coast. This could be a chance for a real building block game for them. Could say the same for North Melbourne. This is a chance for both of these teams to be real building block game as they came off well. Richmond the win with West Coast. North Melbourne the draw against Brisbane in Tasmania. But I think Richmond just a little bit better than the Kangas at this time, so I will be taking the Tigers in that one. Then we have Brisbane versus Melbourne, but it is at the Gabba and it will be Brisbane. I think Melbourne, their little peaking forms died off a little bit. They had that little run where Max Gawn was back to being one of the best ruckmans the AFL's ever seen, probably the best ruckman the AFL's ever seen. That bubble's burst now, and I think Melbourne have to look at themselves in the mirror and find a new way to win because Max Gawn's not going to be able to carry them every week. Brisbane, I think, win this one. Probably, I don't think it's going to be as comfortable as most people think. I think Doggies is going to be the real comfortable one this week. Brisbane still got over the line by 5 or 6 goals quite comfortably in the end though. The final game of round 10, West Coast versus St Kilda. And I think St Kilda, even though I think they're shaky and their form's not great at all times, they do go over West Coast here. It is going to be a quality affair either way. I think this is one where the young guys are going to shine for both teams, but I think St Kilda, just the players they've got around those young guys, helps bolster them, and that's the difference in class between West Coast and St Kilda at the moment. And for that reason, I will be taking St Kilda, but not by a lot. I think St Kilda will win this one by 3 goals. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have time for this week. Ben, thank you for having me as always. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Aidan, for all your reviews for round 9, restrictions and all that for round 10. Alright, that's all for part 1. Aidan Berry, thank you so much for sharing and some very good moments, sexy Geelong Cats, and some really good choices. So I picked the opposite, but check that out soon. Alright, thank you so much for listening, and yeah, check it out. So we'll see you all very, very soon. Alright, the BJ Show's out. See you in part 2 as BJ, your host from the BJ Show, will get in and share his thoughts for part 2 of the round 9 reviews and thoughts and review of predictions for round 10. Alright, thanks for listening. BJ Show's out. Bye for now.